This is the Terrazza Sofa, designed in 1970 by Ubald Klug, and a full set costs $99,000, or $24,000 for one seat. And while I can't afford that, what if I could just build it myself? Because while nowhere online says exactly how it's made, seemingly it's comprised of 3 main materials, and a mysterious 7-layer frame that may or may not be connected. So it can't be that hard to build, right? Because for the past 3 years, I've been filling my home by building the craziest designer furniture I can't afford at just a fraction of the cost. I figured if anyone was gonna risk it all for the sake of DIY, well, it might as well be me. And how could I forget my new best friend, Kevin. Now, Kevin's a part-time Santa Claus and full-time upholsterer. Plus, with over 60 years of building experience, he's the one guy I trust to help me pull off these projects. So can we become the first creators to fully rebuild the $24,000 Terrazza Sofa so it looks just as good as one you'd find in a high-end furniture store? And even more importantly, can we do it all for under $1,000? Well, let's find out. But this video doesn't actually start with me building the Terrazza Sofa at all. It starts with World War II. Such a stupid line. From 1919 to 1933, the interior design industry had been thriving, with the heart of furniture manufacturing and design being Bauhaus School in Weimar, Germany. That is, until Nazis took control and the entire design movement was completely erased. Designers and manufacturers were redirected towards war efforts like weapons and propaganda for well over a decade. Then 1945 hits, and after a decade, the war is finally over. As a result, in comes a completely new era of cool young designers. They push boundaries with all new design styles, have access to all new materials, pieces stop trying to disappear into rooms and start becoming the room. And with the radical modernism movement, in comes the it girl of design, the Dune sofa. And ultimately, that's what I set out to build 18 weeks ago. Not the Terrazza Sofa. And I quickly learned that that was our first mistake, because this is one piece of furniture that you're actually not allowed to rebuild, and I learned that the hard way. So way back in October, after weeks of research and reverse engineering this build, Kevin and I officially started. We ended up getting of plywood and had 6 of them cut into 20 squares. Plus we got a handful of 2x4s and construction screws, and at checkout we ended up spending $500. And honestly, for the next 2.5 months, this project completely took over my life until December came, and one random morning, I woke up to some devastating news. I think it's safe to say I just got some heartbreaking news, because I woke up about 30 minutes ago to a cease and desist on this project. So basically what I've been working on the past few months of my life is just dead. I guess first things first, we should probably call Kevin, let him know.
Good morning, Matt.
Hey, good morning, how are you?
Oh, I'm doing pretty well.
Unfortunately, we need to stop what we're currently building because I got a cease and desist this morning.
Oh, boy.
We're still gonna do a project, I just don't know what it's gonna be yet, so we just need a pivot.
Happy to help.
Okay, I think that goes to show in and of itself why I love Kevin. Let's figure this out. Now, overall, the terms are simple. Stop the build immediately, take apart the sofa, and delete the series. And the worst part is that this makes sense. I really look up to Pierre Paulin as a designer, and if his estate doesn't want someone recreating his work, that's totally fair. I ended up spending a few days disassembling the sofa, and luckily they dropped the case. And sure, I could have thrown in the towel here, but these builds were never really about making the coolest sofa. Upon reflection, they're really just about spending time with Kevin and getting invaluable one-on-one experience from a master craftsman. And that is the story of how the Terrazza Sofa was born. But we're already $500 into our $1,000 budget, which means buying more wood is completely off the table. So all we have to work with to build these mysterious 7 layers is scrap wood and whatever else I could salvage from the last project. And on paper, that should make this borderline impossible. Plus, the next issue is the dimensions, because when you try to look up this thing online, the only real information that exists is the footprint of the base. And after 3D printing this miniature model to help me visualize the dimensions of each layer, I guess that's where we start. Coincidentally, I had 2 pieces of plywood from the Dune sofa pre-cut to just 1 inch bigger than these dimensions. So I just took that plywood, and to give it some depth, I stacked 2x4s right in the middle, essentially turning this thing into a massive wooden pallet. Also possibly the heaviest pallets on planet Earth, but still, a wood pallet. And for the next 2 layers, honestly, I did the same exact thing. Eyeballing the Terrazza shape, cutting the corners down slightly, and inside of our plywood, stacking a bunch of 2x4s. Basically just building pallet after pallet, not precise, not pretty, but structurally solid. At least until we ran out of the normal sheets of plywood. And trying to stitch together these asymmetrical, small pieces of wood found it more challenging than I anticipated. But here's what's interesting, and why I'm up here. In the last video while building the living tower, I accidentally cut this entire section off of the frame. And in the moment, I assumed it was ruined, but as a last-ditch effort, I just threw a metal bracket and some construction adhesive to try and add something like a band-aid on it. But to my surprise, it held up perfectly, and to this day, it's held up. And that simple mistake last year ended up being the solution to all of my problems here. Instead of trying to build clean, perfect layers, we leaned into the imperfection. Each layer was made of misshaped pieces of wood joined together with tons of metal brackets. And since all the wood would be hidden under foam and fabric, who cares what it looks like? Obviously it's ugly, but it doesn't matter. And that's when this frame really started to come together. Like, some of these layers are made from 5 or 6 different scrap pieces of wood with an extra 7 or 8 brackets. But after what seemed like going against all of the odds, before long, we officially had the Terrazza frame. And while it may look small and underwhelming, to be fair, we officially had the real test ahead of us, which was to present it to Kevin. It doesn't have to be perfect. I just need it to be good enough for upholstery. Okay, Kevin. Now we gotta see if you think we can work with this build.
I can't wait. I can't wait to see this. No, this is pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
Do you think we can work with this?
I think I'm going to have another suggestion for you, though. I don't know if it's possible, but if we could get a piece of wood in between them so that there's a space in between, and then we can mold the foam around that, and then also be able to tuck the fabric in.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how did I do?
You did it a 12.
Oh, let's go. Nice.
Let's go.
Oh, amazing. Do you have any desire to test this out how it is?
Nope.
Okay, so that was a success. So from here, we ended up spending about 30 minutes taking the entire frame apart, cutting up every last piece of scrap wood, and adding these 3/4-inch spacers underneath each layer. And once the frame was officially locked in, it was time to take a road trip and for Kevin to really step into his element. The fabric outlet. And walking in with him was like walking in with the president. Now, this is just one of many Kevin's hole-in-the-wall spots. So our first goal was to find a fabric that really just screamed 1970s, and we went with a light brown corduroy. Our only other goal was to find 2-inch high-density foam for the cushions. Though this randomly became the scariest moment of the video, because when we saw the price, it was way, way higher than we anticipated. But this is where Kevin does something that I never even would have considered. He negotiates. And not in a cringe sort of way, in a calm and experienced, I know what this should cost way. And somehow, he got that price down, like way down. So we were able to get 15 yards of fabric, 17 yards of batting, and 20 yards of foam for a couple $100, but it seems like anywhere we go, Kevin knows a guy or knows a place that can give us a steal of a discount. So we're gonna take quite the long drive back home and then finish this build up. All right, to Rhode Island we go. Then back at home, each layer of the frame follows the same 3-step process. Up first, the foam. We used an electric carving knife to sculpt the foam to match each wooden layer. Every angle, every curve, every side, just cut it out and hot glued it down. And next up is the fabric. Same idea. We laid our fabric right over the foam, traced the shape, and cut long strips out for the sides. And step 3 is the sewing, but that's all Kevin.
In the sewing, we're going to do a 5/8-inch seam allowance on all of these sides, and we're gonna have to do a whole bunch of them. And we're off and running. When you sew, you always sew face to face. Matt's already cut them for me, makes it so much easier. The pins are just to hold it in place so it doesn't shift. When Joann's was going out of business, they had for 10 cents a 1970 slap bracelet. Took the slap bracelet and I put a piece of Velcro onto that. I sewed it down, and I have boom, boom, boom.
They never seen it like that before.
And that's how we sew the sides. So, since Joann's went out of business, I've been pretty much working on a lot of custom-made shirts. I do some reupholstery, and of course, only in November and December. Ho, 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 ho. I had a couple of strokes and open heart surgery last May.
But they're not taking you out.
No.
They're still around.
No. They say the good die young. That's just not true.
And by the end of night 1, I genuinely thought we nailed this. We slipped on the fabric cover that Kevin sewed, and to me, it looked tight, it looked clean. And then I looked at Kevin's face, and I froze because I could immediately tell he did not like it at all.
We're gonna have to tear it apart. Doesn't matter.
When we do get it fitting, it'll feel even better. So it's actually a good thing. And for as devastated as I was in that moment, I was spitting facts. See, they don't need to be thick enough to just cover the foam. They need to also wrap around underneath each layer and be stapled to the bottom. So by the time we went back to the drawing board, recut all of these strips to be way thicker, well, that's when we really hit our stride on this build. I even had some friends fly in, who Big Brother and Amazing Race fans will definitely recognize here, who were extremely eager to help, which to me makes this so much more special. because everyone in my orbit, from my wife to my boy Kevin to my best friends from around the country, had a hand in this build. But for the next 2 weeks, Kevin came over every single morning, and we worked on this thing from sun up until sundown. We even worked on Christmas Day, where we were already switching out our sewing machine, so Kevin invited me over for a quick tour of his space. But right on theme, that was actually the day I met Santa Claus.
Hello, Mr. Turner. Come on into Santa's workshop. Come on in. Come on in. I usually start making garments on the sewing table. Just doing buttons and buttonholes right now on this machine. Then I bring it over to this machine and I serge the seams. Then I do a cover stitch on this machine. And then I have another one down the basement that's used for upholstery. But I have an old 1920 Singer, heavy duty industrial machine. I can go through about 5 layers of leather on this machine. This is my woodworking area. Here's where I store all of my fabric. This is my inventory of shirts. A lot of them are, Christmas.
So I left that day with the new sewing machine, and the next morning we got right back to work. Every day we'd lay out each wooden pallet. We'd add hot glue all over it and then fill it entirely with foam. From there we'd add a layer or 2 of batting. We'd cut out the fabric to perfectly match the top and the sides, and Kevin would sew that together and turn it into our slip-on cushions. And once we slid them over the top, we'd flip the cushion over and add about 1,000 staples to the bottom to really secure every bit of fabric down. Plus in this process, Kevin even re-taught me how to sew. And honestly, I became pretty good at it. Now we did hit one small hiccup, that being on layer 4. The curve was just a little too aggressive and the fabric couldn't properly stretch around it. But after sealing those edges with hot glue so it wouldn't fray, we tucked it in and just kept going, layer by layer and day by day.
Some of the tips that I'd really like to show you was cutting the grooves to get around corners. On an inside curve, you want to cut a V so that you can go down, in and around. And this is an outside curve, well, just the slit will work. The slit will work, and you can pull that over. A square corner, you want to cut a square wedge out of it so that you can go down on that side and then down on that side.
And by early February, after a project that we had initially started back in October, we were finally able to do the one task that we had been waiting for, stacking up our 7 layers. And of course, finally test whether this thing was actually worth all the time we poured into it.
Were you ready? We're going to sit in this for my very first time.
Oh yeah.
That's good. Time to take a nap.
But, oh, it's so nice. I love this thing. And so after all of that hard work, probably 100+ hours of building, well, we finally have the Terrazza Sofa. Plus, it only seems fair to cue you in on that final price point, and we ended up building this for a total of $981, which I think is the first time I have ever made a project within budget, so major success right there. And even after all this, just like building the living tower, well, I actually had one more question for Kevin. I asked you this last time. Do you think I could have done this by myself?
The answer has to remain no, only because it took the 2 of us to pull and stretch the fabric. I think he's gotten so much better. Eventually, he's going to be on his own. But for now, Santa's got to help, sorry.
It is probably clear over the past few months we've become super close, which really does feel like the best part of this video. Throw the weird coincidences and circumstances of making this series, I have someone in my life for the first time who really feels like a father figure, who can either mentor me or if I need advice, I can call them, no questions asked. So maybe a little bit too deep for YouTube, but at the end of the day, that is a result of these videos and this channel. And to the late designer of the original Terrazza Sofa, Ubald Klug, or the current manufacturers who make this really is a love letter to the product. And to the viewers at home watching, really, I can't thank you enough for watching this far into the video. I hope it shows how hard I worked on this. So with all that being said, well, here we go. Thank you so much for watching. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and do all that jazz. My name has been Turner. You guys have been YouTube. And all right, I'll see you guys later.